Have a look around you. Seriously, that phone you're holding, the t-shirt you're wearing, maybe even the snack on your desk. Every single one of those things has been on an absolutely incredible journey, crossing oceans and continents just to get to you. So in this explainer, we're going to follow that journey and pull back the curtain on the amazing hidden world of global trade that makes our lives possible. Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll get right down to the super simple reason why we trade in the first place. Then, we'll zoom out and see how trade weaves our entire world together. After that, we'll investigate a real-life story about a massive traffic jam at sea that literally brought global trade to a standstill. We'll also peek inside all those shipping containers to see what we're actually trading. And finally, we'll explore how you can trade something you can't even see, your own unique skills.
So let's start with the most basic question of all. Why do people even bother to trade? What's the whole point?
At its core, trade is actually really simple. It's just an exchange. I mean, think about it. If you live somewhere cold, you probably can't grow your own bananas. And you definitely can't build a smartphone from scratch in your bedroom, right? Well, trade is how we solve that problem. It lets us get all the cool and necessary things that we just can't make or find where we live. A long, long time ago, trade was all about bartering. You know, you might swap a basket of your corn for your neighbor's sheep. Sounds simple, but what if your neighbor doesn't want corn? What if they want a chicken instead? See, it gets complicated really fast. And that's exactly why we invented an amazing tool that everyone agrees on: money. And for money to really work, we all have to agree on a price. Now, a price isn't just a random number on a tag. It's an agreement. It's that perfect sweet spot where the person selling and the person buying both feel like they're getting a good deal. Everybody walks away happy. And hey, this whole idea of trade, it applies to you too, or at least it will someday. When you have a job, you're not really selling a physical thing. You're actually trading your time and your skills, what we call labor, in exchange for money or a salary. So yeah, pretty much every job out there is a form of trade.
Okay, so we've talked about people trading one-on-one. But what happens when entire countries with millions and millions of people start trading with each other? Let's zoom out and see how this works on a massive global scale.
It all boils down to two key ideas: exports and imports. Think of it like this. Exports are goods exiting the country, stuff that a country sells to the rest of the world, like South Africa selling its amazing gold. And imports are goods coming in, the stuff a country buys from other places, like oil or special medicines. And just look at the variety here. South Africa doesn't just export gold and diamonds. They sell all sorts of things, from fruit to really high-tech car parts. And get this, they even export an experience. That's right, when a tourist visits, it's counted as a service export, because the country is essentially selling its beautiful culture and scenery. How cool is that? So why do countries need to import things anyway? Well, the answer is simple. No single country has everything. You might have the best apple orchards in the world, but no oil underground. Or you might need a super advanced robot for a factory that's only made in one specific place on the other side of the planet. Imports are all about filling in those gaps. You know, to really understand trade, you've got to know the lingo. These 4 words are basically the building blocks. Goods are the physical things you buy. Natural resources are the useful things nature gives us. Climate is what decides what we can grow where, and value is how we figure out what it's all worth. If you get these 4, you're well on your way to being a trade expert. Okay, so we've seen how this giant connected system of trade is supposed to work. But what happens when it breaks? Let's dive into a real-world story that shows just how delicate this whole thing can be. It all starts with one single gigantic ship, the Ever Given. So picture this. It's March 2021, and the Ever Given, a ship longer than 4 football fields, by the way, is making its way through a super important waterway called the Suez Canal. Then out of nowhere, a crazy sandstorm hits. Powerful winds slam into the ship, push it sideways, and boom, it gets completely stuck, wedged from one side of the canal to the other, creating the biggest traffic jam you've ever seen. The impact was immediate, and it was huge. About 10% of all the world's trade goes through that one little canal, and suddenly it was completely blocked. Hundreds of ships loaded with goods were just stuck, waiting. And because of this one ship, we started seeing empty shelves in stores all over the world, and the price of things like oil and gas started to go up for everyone. So how could one ship cause such a massive global problem? Well, here's the jaw-dropping number that explains it all. A staggering 90% of almost everything we buy is transported by ship. Why? Because it's simply the cheapest way to move huge amounts of stuff across the planet. Our entire world economy is literally floating on the oceans.
All right, so we know why we trade and how all this stuff gets around. But what's actually inside all of those millions of shipping containers that are constantly crisscrossing the globe?
Well, pretty much everything in those containers can be split into two big groups. First, you have primary products. This is the raw stuff, taken straight from nature, like wood from a forest or iron ore dug out of a mine. Then that raw stuff goes to factories, where they work their magic and turn it into secondary products, the finished things we actually use every day, like a wooden chair or a shiny new car.
But wait, trade isn't just about physical stuff. Not at all. You can also trade something you can't even see or touch. Something totally invisible, but incredibly valuable. Your skills and your talents. So what's the difference between a skill and a service? Well, think of it this way. A skill is knowing how to do something, like knowing all the right ways to cut hair. A service is the doing part. It's the action of actually giving someone a haircut in exchange for money. It's when you put your skill into action for someone else. A doctor is the perfect example of this. When you visit a doctor, you don't walk out with a physical product, right? You're not buying a thing. You're paying for their service. You're paying for their time, their expert knowledge, and all their years of training, all the skills they use to help you get better.
Okay, let's do a quick recap of some of those key terms to make sure they stick. Remember, labor is just another word for work. A factory is that magical place where raw materials are turned into finished products, and skills are those special trained abilities that let people do a specific job really, really well. And this is how it all fits together in the real world. You've got mines that sell raw materials. You've got factories that make things. You've got stores that sell those things. And then you have services, like schools and hospitals, that support all the people working in those other places. It's one big, amazing, interconnected system. So, to wrap this all up, I want to leave you with a little challenge. Just look around the room you're in right now. Pick something, anything. Your shoes, a book, the lamp on your desk, and just for a second, try to imagine its journey. Where did all its different parts come from? How many thousands of miles did it travel to finally get to you? The incredible, invisible story of global trade is right there, hiding in plain sight, in absolutely everything you own.